Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Digital to Dice podcast. I am Dave.
I'm Ron.
And Ron, we got episode 91 today.
After further review, our guest Steve Tower is going to tell you what that episode is.
Yeah, we have Steve Tower. You've probably seen him on YouTube, and his After Further Review with Steve Tower. We got him. I told you we had a great guest for you this week.
Yeah, we did.
And he's going to talk about some of the stuff he's been doing on YouTube and how he got started with all that stuff there. But anyway, ways to get a hold of us. Digitaltodice.com is the website. 978-751-DICE, 978-751-3423 if you want to send us a text. Digitaltodice at yahoo.com is the email. And over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. So without further review, see what I did there?
Oh, you're something there, Gardner.
I did. Without further review, ado, whatever it is, it's Steve Tower coming up here on the show. Here we go. Joining us on the Dice Line, somebody you're probably familiar with if you spent any time on YouTube looking up gaming videos. In fact, he was a big inspiration for my YouTube channel. Joining us on the Digital to Dice podcast is the one and only Steve Tower. Steve, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, guys. Great to be here.
Thank you.
Always nice to hear that I inspired you to start your YouTube channel. So that was.
I'm talking more about the cooking stuff that you've done.
Oh yeah. Oh boy, we're going way back. I was young. I needed the money.
So anyway, so I guess officially on YouTube, it's After Further Review. Is it After Further Review with or by Steve Tower?
After Further Review with Steve Tower.
With Steve Tower. Okay. So we're going to get into some gaming stuff with you and some of your streaming and news and the whole bit. But first, we have one question that we do ask every guest that comes on the show. And that question is, what sporting event would you attend if you could go back in time and attend any sporting event at all?
Ooh. That is always a good question. And I'd have to say, because now this area is my home, I'd love to go back and see Game 6 of the 75 World Series.
No, the Carlton Fisk.
I can't even imagine what that would have been like to to be in the stands for that, and just the absolute euphoria and church bells ringing and you know.
I think I was kind of young at that. My dad told me I think he got tickets for Game 7. And that's the one, that's the one they lost. But I guess he was right behind the plate. Not like, but he's like 10, 15 rows behind the plate. I don't know what.
Sure.
Somehow he got it at work or whatever. Imagine that Game 7, 75 he got. That was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So that's a good choice. Game 6. Yeah, that's a classic one here for baseball. So, all right, let's start at the way back. First. This is, Ron, episode
91.
All righty. And we're going to let our guest tell us what episode 91 is.
Well, this is the Worm episode, of course. This
Dennis Rodman. I didn't dye my hair appropriately for this one. If I'd known that.
He played, how many teams did he play for? He played for 2 or 3 teams, didn't he?
5 or 6, I think, at the end. But
yeah, he had like a short stint with the Spurs.
That's when he started. I think he started Spurs, and then he went to
Detroit. He was with the Pistons.
Oh, he started Detroit? Okay.
Yep.
And then he went to some of the well-known teams.
Chicago.
Yep.
Played a few and then San Antonio. I think he played for the Lakers a year.
Everyone plays for the Lakers for a year, though. That seems to be like the in thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you've done anything.
I'm just trying to imagine Dennis Rodman and Greg Popovich in the same room.
Oh. Much less the same building, right? Yeah.
In the same room. You will do this. No.
Right.
Didn't he play coach the North Korean team too or something like that? I mean, he's had a crazy basketball history, this guy. He really has. So episode 91 here with Steve Tower. After further review with Steve Tower. All right, Steve, let's get ready. Let's go. Let's rewind and go back in time here. What got you into gaming? What was some of the first tabletop games that you actually played?
Sure. So it actually wasn't technically a game, but the Lone Wolf book series was the first games that really caught my attention. They were, I believe it was an English author who released them, and it was basically sort of a Dungeons and Dragons adventure, but in a book form, in a choose-your-own-adventure form. You'd roll up your character in book number 1, and then anything you found, the experience you gained, then you'd carry it over into book number 2. So you might find an object in book number 1 that has no use, but then a couple books down the line, you're able to use that. It'll say if you have this item, you can.
So you were on the honor system basically with this, right?
Sure, yeah. And so each book had a character sheet in the beginning of it, and it was really one of the things that got me hooked on reading. Once I discovered those, I was like, oh, this is fantastic. And so the idea of you being personally invested in seeing the character grow definitely is something that stuck with me. And then I was a Nintendo kid growing up. Baseball Stars was obviously one of my favorite games. A funny story with Baseball Stars. That's the one it was fictional teams, but some of them had real people, and one of them was a team of philosophers. And I was playing against my older brother, and I must have been 8, and Plato comes up to the plate, and seriously, I asked him, I was like, so what's Plato? Like, what was his, what's he famous for his philosophy? And he's like, you can make it with Plato without missing a beat. Yeah. But yeah, and I didn't really get into board games until, what it would have been like the early 2000s, where I, got into like what we consider modern board games, and Settlers of Catan was the first one that really grabbed my attention, and that got me down the rabbit hole. And then I stumbled into sports board games by a random Google search that brought up an ad for Replay Games.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, hey, what's this all about? And ordered a game and played with the 2 sample teams. And I was like, well, this is interesting. And, that was 17 years ago, I guess now, that I found that. And that kind of led me down the road. And then at the time, Replay Games was publishing second season football, so I bought that. And then I followed that over when I went back to play games. And then that led me to connect with Keith Avalone. And then that led me to History Maker Baseball. And History Maker Baseball was coming back full circle, it was like, oh, this is great. Like, it kind of abstracts the numbers. They're there, but they're hidden in the qualities. And all these cool things can happen. There can be chemistry issues. There can be a problem with the local press runs a bad story and it makes your starting pitcher unhappy. And I was like, this is great. And I was thinking, I want more people to know about this game because it's a really small publisher and nobody's going to, discover it except for the, us weird sports fanatics that found this little niche. And so that's what led me to publish the video all the way back in August of 2013. And then kind of been going ever since then with the channel. But that was the
very first one.
That was the first one. Yeah. I didn't have a camera. I had my iPad, and I stood my iPad up on a couple of like Tupperware containers. So it'd be level with my face, and recorded everything on iMovie and edited it together. And and
I've done that too. The iPad works well for some of the stuff because I bought a little stand for it, and I would have it hanging over me when I did a few of my first videos too. And surprisingly, the iPad works really well. In fact, there's a couple games I've done that I have an app. I think it was like a $5 app or $10 app that it's a scoreboard overlay. And so you have your iPhone with like the app on it, and you change everything with the iPhone, and it changes it on the iPad, which overlays what you're doing. And it works fantastic. fantastic. You get the period, the teams, the score. Sometimes you can have a time clock on there, and it's designed for like kids sports, is to have the iPad and film your kid playing baseball or soccer. But it has a scoreboard overlay on it. So the iPad does some really, really good things, and I still use it from time to time. You know, depending on what I'm doing and the whole bit, I will pull out the iPad and definitely use that. Yeah, so that's it's interesting you did that right off the bat. So, all right, so you did that first video there, and people watched it, and people enjoyed it, and then you're like, okay, I need to do a little bit more. So kind of take us through the progression of, you know, where you went from there.
Sure. So at the time, I was thinking that I was just going to be doing reviews, you know, just pre-taped segments that I'd edit together with fancy transitions and scripts and everything. And I did that for a while, and then I did a news show, a weekly news show, which was sometimes very hard to pull together enough stuff for, you know, specifically sports board game news. And but, you know, I kept doing it. I did another review. I did Red, White, and Blue Racing next. And then, you know, started getting a little attention. Some other designers, you know, started emailing me and said, hey, this is great, and or thanks for plugging my, you know, my game on your show. And what I kind of found out was that the person that I was in recorded segments is not who I really wanted to project to the digital world, because, you know, it wasn't me. And also the problem, especially with these sports games, is it's the flow of the game.
Yes.
And you can't really convey the flow of a game with a pre-recorded segment. And so I found a program called Wirecast that I did a free trial for, and that allowed you to stream live to YouTube. And so, you know, I tried it, and boy, it was great, because then there's no, you know, you can't hide anything. You can't, you know, you make a goof, like, oh, and it was all very, very natural. It flowed really well. I was able to answer live questions. People would come into the chat rooms and could say, you know, what's going on here? And it just felt more organic. And I was like, oh, this is really, you know, the direction I want to go in. And once I started doing that, I didn't look back on doing pre-recorded shows. And also I realized that I was never going to grab a hold of, you know, the board game world doing reviews, because my God, there's hundreds, literally hundreds of board game channels. And so, you know, I wanted to say, like, this is what I'm going to do. It's live playthroughs of games. You know, so you can see for yourself, like, what does the setup actually look like? What is, you know, how long does it really take to go through? And so, yeah, so that's kind of where I am now. And I've had recurring segments, you know, where I'll feature a show every, you know, the same time every week. Of course, Monday Night Tights, my longest running show, using Face to the Mat from Play.com. I do a semi-recurring show with History Maker Baseball. I'm slowly working my way through that season. But yeah, and then I guess what I like about what I'm doing right now is that if something comes along, like On Deck Baseball, I'm not locked into, I have to get a certain show out at a certain time. I can just say, hey, this just, you know, came onto my table and this is really great, so we're going to, you know, play a few games of this. And so, yeah.
Do you do anything taped or pre-recorded anymore? Or is this pretty much everything you're doing kind of turn on the camera and go live?
Yeah, everything's live now.
No.
Yeah, I did do a teaser trailer for...
There's good and bad about live, as you know. You know, sure, again, because if you really mess up, there's nothing you can do. Or if you got a really bad game, and we've all been there, we played a game and like, wow, I'm just getting these rolls where I gotta I don't know what to do. I got to dig in. There's a question mark here. There's something I'm just not that familiar. There's sometimes
the second Dodgers 8, Tigers nothing.
Yeah, it just goes down this path, and you're like, man, I kind of wish I wasn't live here because I'd probably just restart this whole thing. So there's good and bad to both. You know, I still do a little bit of both. Sometimes I'll get a script out and I'll do something, especially when I'm showing off a game, because sometimes something will come up and like, wow, you know, I want to make sure that, you know, I'm going to show off how to do this, and I'm going to have like full control over this segment of the game. So pre-recording, you have full control, and again, going live, you don't. What are some of the fun things that you've got out of this? Like what the enjoyment, the fun. Talk about the fun part of this.
Oh, sure. Well, definitely interacting with fans during a live show is great. You see familiar names popping up, and you know, I've met so many people now through the channel, and it's always cool when they pop back in. They say hi, and you know, some people like certain games, so they'll always show up for a certain game. Yeah, that's definitely, it's, you know, I kind of feed off that energy. It's especially this last year where we've all been huddled up in our basements. It's sort of been my only connection with the gaming community is through those channels. But yeah, definitely just the idea that it's, you know, it's not, we're not doing some, you know, big formal presentation. It's kind of a, you know, just a fun environment. People come in, they, you know, they joke and stuff in the chat rooms. They laugh when I make a rules mistake or a die falls off the table. And yeah, so that's it. You know, things like
they're
that.
They're not laughing with you, Steve. Trust me.
Isn't it amazing how often a die will roll off your tabletop? You'd think it's crazy, yeah. I'm just going to drop it here, and I myself, I had to put up boards around my hockey rink because I would go underneath the monitor here. I'm like, how is this?
I don't have that problem.
No, you don't have this problem. You're special.
Usually, yeah.
But yeah, I see Al, Red Sox fan. He's always that red die just runs away from him, and the same thing happens to me and a few other people too. And you hear him bending over to get the dice. I think it kind of adds to the, like, we're all real people here. You know, when something like that happens, okay, that could happen to anybody. Ha ha ha. You know, and so it just happened to me this time.
Yeah, I mean, and it's definitely improved my ability to improvise.
Oh, you have to. You have to learn how to fly.
Sure.
Without the safety net.
Nothing worse than dead air. So something like that happens, I'll throw out something, you know, like, oh, let's pause for station identification.
yeah. WSBK TV 38.
Please stand by. What did you follow for sports growing up on the mean streets of upstate New York?
Oh boy. Well, so the fun thing about growing up there in the 80s
with one channel
is well, I was lucky. We actually caught 3 channels.
Ooh.
2, sometimes, you know, you play with the rabbit ears enough and we could get ABC, but it was sort of the wild, wild west. Like, you could root for whoever you wanted to, and we were, you know, 7 hours away from New York City. So it wasn't like you had to root for New York teams. You could, some team came out and had, I remember, I don't know, it must have been my freshman year of high school when the Timberwolves became a franchise, and a bunch of people just started wearing Timberwolf jerseys because they liked the colors on them. And so I was a Cincinnati Reds fan when I was younger because of my brother. You follow your brother's footsteps, and he was a child of the 70s, so he grew up rooting for the Reds, and so I followed suit because I didn't know any better, and same reason I followed the Los Angeles Rams when I was a kid, because of my brother. So he for whatever reason he started following them. I guess they're fearsome foursome of the 70s, and we really didn't get to watch live sports up there except for the game of the week.
Right.
And then when we finally got cable, then I was able to watch every Braves game that I wanted to.
And about 50 more than you wanted to.
Right, yeah. So it was unfortunate that I wasn't a Braves fan, but yeah. So then I kind of bounced around. By the time I graduated high school, I had decided to make my own mark on who I was going to root for. So I changed to all New York teams, and I actually became a Jets fan for a while. I don't like to talk about that too much anymore, but
I wouldn't.
Nobody does.
So, but now I've been living in the greater Boston area for, going on 15 years now. So, so this is the longest I've ever been anywhere, as an adult. So now I'm all in on all the Boston.
Well, you're in the city of champions, so it's a good place to end up for a sports fan.
And I moved here at a good time. I moved here in 2006.
Ooh.
So I got to
picked a very good time.
Yeah. So I missed the 2004 World Series, but then got to see everything else. And so, yeah. So definitely a good area to be in if you're a sports fan.
Yeah.
So there wasn't anyone in the cafeteria, because in my high school there was actually kids in the cafeteria that would play strat baseball, which was I didn't really know the kids all that well. We weren't in the same circle of friends, but obviously knew from reading the sporting news that those games existed. So you're the first person I've talked to that actually said that Google got him into sport, finding games on Google. So there weren't curious about playing a sports game outside of what was on the Nintendo or anything like that?
Yeah, I didn't know that they existed. There was no...
I was the same way, yeah. Yeah. I think I used to see Stratomatic hockey in the Hockey News and Strat Baseball and Baseball Digest, but I didn't know what it was. And I was like, why would I want to play a Strat game when I can, do something else? Again, Nintendo, whatever. Yeah. I mean, I saw them, but I didn't know what they were.
Right. And back in those days, right, you would have had to...
Mail it.
Mail in a check and...
Yeah. Ma, give me a check.
Explain that to anyone under 30. Well, you have this thing called a check, and in 4 to 6 weeks, maybe you'd get it.
So, yeah. So I'm sure even if I had wanted to, that I don't think that Mom would have wrote out a check to something called Stratomatic. And
yeah.
So.
Yeah. Hey, when you're doing your videos, and something that Ron and myself talk about all the time, how do you, where do you draw the line between you want to show a game off, you want to show how the game plays and what to look for in a game, but without giving away the game, without showing too much? How do you kind of balance that out because if you don't show enough, then people I have no idea what I'm looking at. But if you show too much, now it's like, well, man, maybe I just gave the whole game away here and I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, it's definitely a tricky kind of balancing act. Mm-hmm. I guess especially lately, what I've been trying to do is I have, if it's a game that has a chart, is I don't have the camera focused on that, or if it is, it's blocked by the scorecard over it. I've started using an app where I can project my iPad onto my screen. So I'm using all digital scorecards now, and I'll blow that up. So it's, so they can see, they get the idea oh, okay, you have to go here when you're checking a result, but they can't just, take a screenshot and go print it out at Staples and buy the game. So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, so as I was saying earlier, really what I'm trying to show is the flow of the game, so that people can decide oh, I like that. That's just my speed. Or they can say oh, that takes too long. Or no, I want something that's much, much deeper. So, so I always try to give the caveat of, maybe a rule or two is not going to be exactly right as I'm doing a live show, because one thing I found is I lose about 20 IQ points as soon as I go live.
There's something about when you're live with the game that you're distracted because you are live. and
Sure.
you got the chat room going, and you're trying not to make mistakes. And I go back all the time. Even the other day, I did a video. I'm like, wow, I think I read that wrong, or I did something, because again, there's a distraction there. There really is. When you're doing it live, and that's what a lot of people don't get, is that it's not easy. I mean, it's not rocket science, but yeah, there's a distraction, like Ron was saying.
Sure. Yeah. Well, until I get a producer who's running the boards, I'm also doing the transitions and making sure the camera's in focus, making sure I'm not trying to point to something on my tabletop and it's off screen. And then the chat room, someone will make a off color comment and I gotta mute that person.
I find that sometimes I forget where I am. Like I'll be playing a hockey game and I'll be chatting with somebody, and I'll explain something to somebody, and I'll go back and say, "Damn it, did I take the shot yet or not?" I don't remember. Did this guy get his bat in if I'm playing baseball or not? You know what I mean? It's like, did I already roll for this or not? It's like, because I see the dice on the table, I'm like, man, and you can't rewind and go back and look at it, and
right.
So so sometimes you're something, executive decision, commissioner's decision, I'm gonna roll again because I really don't remember.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there one game that you tried that you really wanted to say, I really want to show this off? What started this for you?
Oh, well, it was definitely History Maker Baseball.
Okay.
That was the one. Like I said, it was kind of like, oh, this is what I've been looking for. It's a sports game with baseball, which is my biggest love, and then it also has all these other elements to it, like, oh wow, like you can. Well, and it was the first baseball game at the time, or at least that I knew of, that had fictional players. So I was like, oh, I can just dive into my own world here, and I can move this player into left field, and nobody can say he never played in left field. And,
right.
Ron never gets that on his stream.
Never. Never.
But it was definitely History Maker Baseball that I was just like, wow, this is amazing, and this is a game that I feel like kind of a new generation of players could potentially latch onto and play, and kind of bridge the gap between the demographic of people that I affectionately refer to as Skip, and Skip is the 70-year-old U.S. Navy veteran who wears a USS Constitution hat.
We don't know anybody like that.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
And it's like, we all love Skip.
Skip from Maine. Yep.
Yeah, but Skip's not going to be here forever. And we need the next generation of people to keep buying these sports games so that we can, keep having them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without naming a game or the game, on the question about it, without naming the game, have you ever played a game and you were going to do a video, but you're like, man, I don't think I really want to do a video for this game? Has you ever come up with that situation where you said, okay, you get it all set up, I'm going to do the game, and all of a sudden you're like, something, I'm not going to do a video for this one? Without naming the game.
Sure. Yeah. There was one early on. I got it set up and tried to play a game. And it was just like, oh boy, this, like, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I like to think that I can get a pretty good grasp on gameplay. And it was just like subsections of subsections for specific rules. And it was like, oh boy, this is, I'm not the person that should be showcasing this. And so, I have a couple of times. And also one of the reasons that I got away from saying I was doing reviews, because then I felt a certain obligation. If somebody sent me something, that then I had to record a review, where now I just pick and choose. And,
right.
If I see something I like, I'll reach out to the person and, know that it's a game that I can do a live playthrough. But definitely there's certain games out there where it's just like, oh boy, this is, I guess, the blurring the lines of, a detail and
some games are just hard to stream. It might be great to play by yourself, but to try to show it off in a stream really wouldn't make for a good video.
Sure,
So.
sure, definitely, yeah. Well, and then I also have to balance, because I'm obviously commentating during the games, and that adds time to not necessarily to the gameplay, but it adds time to the video. And then people will be like, "Oh my God, does it really take 45 minutes to play a quarter?" And like, well, no, unless you're explaining things to yourself out loud.
Yeah.
To no one else in the room, then I guess maybe it would. But there's definitely a fine line of where you want to be engaging and give your color commentary and do your best, John Madden impersonations, but then you also want to, show the flow of the game.
Yeah, move the game along. Yeah. I got a comment the other day from somebody. Ron and I did a joint football broadcast with Solitaire Pro Football, where he was actually playing it and describing the play, and then I was using a helper to kind of put it up on the screen. And so that way, so he was kind of doing it, and I was kind of the producer, so to speak. And someone said, he goes, I'm not being mean here, but he said, I'm not really sure why, you would do a video like this where you're really not showing off the game and you're just kind of playing it. And I kind of got back to him. I said, well, okay. I said, well, here's the deal. I says, we both do a lot of instructional videos and unboxing videos. And I says, it's nice once in a while to just play the game, open up a chat room, and not have to explain how to play the game. And you just play it. And we were able, and it says, and also it shows people, because one of the things I like about your channel and, Ron's channel and a lot of other people's channel is, I don't necessarily need an instructional every time you do. I want to see somebody just play the game, because somebody will do something that I hadn't thought of. And like, ooh, I like that. Let me make a note. I'm going to incorporate that in my game. Or somebody might have something, like I say, a ball stat thing or an iScore thing that they use. And it's just sometimes you want to see somebody in their natural habitat, so to speak, playing the game.
Sure, yeah.
And you're like, wow, that's something I never thought about. And so I got back to him, and he was cordial, but he got back and said, yep, I appreciate the answer. Thank you so much. But yeah, we just played that one game, and someone's like, why would you not do this? And I said, well, we do that, but sometimes it's nice just to play.
Yeah. And also there are certain things that we can't show. We talked about this a little bit earlier. We've been asked in this particular game, there's certain things that we've been asked not to show.
Yeah.
And you want to, I'm sure, I don't know what arrangements you have with what you show, but, if someone says you can't show this,
no, we don't. Yeah.
Then we can't show it. And, it made it easier for me to play this particular game, but you don't want to get in bad with the game companies as well, because if you go sit there and go, well, screw this is my game, here it is, and again, you don't want to do the screenshot thing. So I guess that kind of dovetails to my next question: is you do a lot of the Play.com games, and I know that Keith's aware of what you do. How that relationship developed, and what should we know about that?
Oh, sure. So my first introduction to Keith was when I bought, I believe it was the 2009 season for second season. That was the first year that it went back, Play.com. And Keith sends personalized notes with his orders.
Yes.
Which is just fantastic.
I love that. I do. I like to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so immediately I was like, oh, wow, well, that's that's pretty cool. And it had his email address on it. And when he was in the process of making History Maker Baseball, we had exchanged emails a few times. And he was, at the time, he was doing the World, what was it called? The World Championships of Board Games in Pittsburgh.
That's where they have it. Yeah,
Board Game Championship. Yeah, and he used to set up a table there to sell his wares. And so one year I was just like, oh, you know what? I'm going to go out and meet you there. And so drove out there, and I don't know. I guess we were just compatico. We were on the same wavelength and wanted the same things out of games. And it was just kind of at the time, this was before I even started the channel. And we got chatting, and and that was where our friendship started. And then when I wanted to do that video, put that out, and then that brought a lot of attention to the game, and so we've had a very good relationship through the years, and then as he's getting new things out, he'll make sure that I get a copy of the game, so that I can do a preview of it and get things out. And then now he's doing conventions, or he was before the quarantine came down. So it's definitely been a great friendship, great partnership.
Awesome.
Between us, and because I feel like Play, and now with the new brand, the Play Now, that's kind of the direction that sports board games need to go if they're gonna be viable in 10, 15 years. And so he's my God, he's got to be the nicest person on the face of the earth. He's and so humble, and just such a genuine person. I mean, my God, he actually invited other game designers to his last convention in 2019, and
that's nice.
Let them talk about their games, and a couple of them even sold some things at his convention. So he's he's someone, he genuinely wants people to just have fun, enjoy playing, and he knows that he's not the biggest fish in this board game pond, but he's definitely made a mark, and so that somebody that I'm always happy to help out and showcase, and plus his games are just so
the Play
fun.
Games are very unique the way they do it. I have several of them myself, and boy, I tell you, I don't have the baseball or the football. I have the racing game, which I'm not even a racing guy. I'll watch it on TV from time to time. That is fun. I've run a few races with that, and it's like, boy, and you look at this, and my first thought with the racing game, Red, White, and Blue Racing, I was like, well, there's no way anybody in the back lot is going to ever contend for the lead. Mm-hmm. And the first race I did, there was a guy in the back, and somehow he moved all the way up to the front of the back, and then he overtook somebody in the third, and then he actually, this guy that was in the bottom 30 or whatever, led the race for a lap. And I was so impressed with that in that game that could happen in the game. Now, he didn't win it, but he come out of the nowhere. He was a Cinderella story coming out of nowhere. I don't even know who it was. But he rolled and he beat the top guy for just that one little instant there. But he come out of the pack, and I was like, this is a fun game for someone who's not even a racing guy. And the same with the golf, the History Maker golf. That I watched so many videos on that, and I was like, well, but when it got in front of me, it all made sense, and it looks like you were watching golf on TV, but you're playing it. And they do such a good job being very different. They're very different than some of the bigger companies, or even some of the little companies that it's all kind of math related. The way they do it, it really makes for a fun game. It really does. Yeah. But again, it's a very different game. So you got to go in with a different point of view, maybe an open mind. You can't go in thinking that it's going to be like X, Y, or Z. It's a very different kind of game. But boys, the golf and the racing are beautifully done, and I really enjoy playing those. So yeah, kudos to Play. It's very different kind of game. I haven't played that. I still want to try the baseball someday and give that a go, because I'm a casual baseball guy, but that looked kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's probably two of the most common comments that I get is people saying, I hate golf. I never watch golf, but man, I played this, I watched your video and decided to buy the game, and I love it. And which I think is got to be the biggest compliment you could ever give a game. If you don't even have an interest in the subject,
yeah,
but are able to enjoy the game,
You played more offline than online, or in front of the camera or off the camera?
Lately, I play more on camera.
Mm-hmm.
I do try to sneak in games here and there. Well, and then obviously in the last year, I've had more time because I had a 3-hour commute to work. So, I definitely like to kind of force myself sometimes to play off camera just to be able to enjoy it and remind myself why.
That's important. Why you do this? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a replay, a season that you've always dreamed of doing that you might tackle at some point as you become Skip from the Navy?
Oh, sure. Well, not to replay a season, but my dream is 1 year to just take the fictional set for History Maker Baseball, the Baseball America, and play out a full 162 game season with all the teams and keep track of all the stats.
Wow.
What is speaking of what has been your biggest project to date? What would you consider your longest or biggest project?
Well, let's see.
Have you done a full season, or have you done a full playoffs or a playoff series? Or how do you usually play?
So I did a full season with History Maker Baseball's fictional league, but it was only 42 games. And then the next year, I just did a single team where I played all their games out and then just fast played all the others. And then, then life got in the way and kids kept getting older and demanded more time.
Imagine that.
Yeah. So, but the Monday Night Tights is my longest running. I did take a break from it last year where I just sort of ran out of creative steam and sort of needed to recharge the batteries. But that's probably the one game that I've done the most shows on.
You talked a lot about fictional stuff. What's the draw to that for you? As opposed, I mean, we actually just did a show on fictional leagues and fictional games and that. So, what's the draw for you doing that as opposed to, let's say, the 90 Reds or 75 Reds or the 2007 Patriots or something like that?
I guess that I like the idea of I can invent my own backstories for players, and they can be whoever I want them to be, and I'm not tied down to a narrative that's already been established. And I can, the teams can be set up wherever I want them to be. If I wanted to say that a bunch of, eccentric owners got together and made a professional baseball league and they're all on Cape Cod, and now there's 12 professional teams on Cape Cod, I could do that. And however silly or preposterous it is, it's fine.
I think universe. You can do what you want.
Yeah. I think I brought that up on that show, Ron. Is that I said I was watching videos, and I think it was one of Steve's videos, and you were playing two teams that are kind of generic names, but then the cities, I was like, well, wait a sec. So yes, you could put these teams. You could put the Panthers or the Cardinals or the Oak Trees. You could put them in any city you want. And I brought that up on the show, and that was a cool thing when I saw that. It's like, oh yeah, I never thought of that. You don't have to go to a major city. You could go to, whatever city you want it to be. So yeah, that is one of the fun things about fictional.
Yeah, and then I guess the other thing is that I feel like I'm creating history.
Yes, absolutely.
As I'm playing, you look at these fictional teams and you'd be like, oh, well, you get an idea like, oh, well, this team looks like they have great pitching and so they should do really well. But, once the games start going, one of them might get injured or something. So I kind of like that draws me in to play another game more than let's go back and replay, a whole season. I have gone back and replayed series before. I guess my favorite one is I replayed the 1990 NLCS between the Pirates and the Reds, and so that was a lot of fun. But that's not what pulls me. It's definitely the fictional players and kind of creating my own universe. And
do you
and
find
also not worrying about mispronouncing a name because
they talked about that.
I talked about that too because I put I play in OOTP and I have the 8 fictional teams, and I changed the name of my best pitcher and I made it Ron Juckett. Well, during the broadcast, it's Ron Juquette. It's not Juckett, it's Juquette.
Nice.
I signed. Did you offer me an extension yet? By the way,
hailing from Quebec, Ontario.
Yeah. Hey, do you find it when you're doing your fictional stuff? Do you find it's harder to share this with other people, the community, and because it is kind of your own little bubble, your own little universe, and you know everybody that's going on. Whereas if you replay the NLCS or a Stanley Cup or a Super Bowl, everybody knows those people and they can relate to them. Do you find that it's harder when you're in your own little fictional world to share that with people and they can kind of enjoy what you're going through?
A little, and I guess that's I enjoy that challenge though of being a storyteller.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good point. Yep.
I'm inviting you into my world. Come pull up a chair, grab a cold one. But it's bounded in everybody. Well, at least everyone in our niche here knows baseball, right? If it's a fictional team and a fictional name, it's still baseball, right? It's still 3 strikes, you're out. It's still 90 feet to first base. It's so people come in, it's not a whole, different world. It's just different players. It's a alternate world, I guess you could say. And so I definitely enjoy, as I'm playing games, kind of throwing in a little character to, some of the names that come up, like my Fernando Mania with Fernando De La Rosa for my Medfield or the New England Minutemen, who I've now done a season replay with a couple times where I'm just playing his starts and then quick playing all the others. And, so people come in and I have people in the chat room that will, every time he strikes somebody out, they hang up a K sign in the stand. So, yeah, it definitely is. If you're doing a replay of a season, there's pros and cons to that because people will be like, oh yeah, that was my favorite year. And, they'll come to that. But then the con is also if, you do something that someone
never turns out how you read about it on Baseball Reference.
Yeah, right. Sure. Well, or just you make a decision and then someone's like, well, that coach would never have, called that play or.
Yeah, I never get those, Steve.
Yeah.
No.
So they each have their pros and cons. And I guess I'm more comfortable with the fictional because then if I make, a decision that someone doesn't like and just like, well,
they don't know who's sitting on the bench.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Have you ever done something that really kind of flopped in your eyes and never did it again or phased it out or maybe thought it was a good idea when you actually put it into play it was like, yeah, this is really, I don't really want to do this anymore. If you ever, it's all kind of trial and error stuff. What is some of the things, maybe one big thing you're like, yeah, I did that in the beginning and now I don't do that anymore?
Oh, sure. Well, the recorded shows for doing reviews. Mm-hmm. I look back at them now and it's kind of embarrassing. I was like such a fake persona where I was trying to be this like over the top and, leaning into the, and it's just like, because I thought that that's what you needed to do to like grab people's attention. And like I said, it just wasn't me. And it was just like, no, this isn't conveying. I mean, one, it's not conveying me, and two, I didn't really feel like that was a great way to convey how these games actually played. And and it was a ton of work.
It is.
God, I think the longest review, that I ever did was maybe a 15 or 20 minute video. And there'd be sometimes I'd put 4 or 5, 6 hours of total time in and, writing out scripts and shots that I wanted to get and then editing it all together, especially when I was doing it on my iPad and, trying to cut a clip.
I think they say whatever you do, whatever the video length is you multiply by 3 or 4, and that gives you the total time of the project is kind of what they always used to say.
Yes. So now when I do a live show, it's, a little bit of prep work beforehand, but now that I have my format down, it's usually not too bad. And especially if I'm doing a game that I'm super comfortable with, like when I do a History Maker Baseball, that's like putting on a nice pair of broken in jeans. It's just, you
Right.
just slide right in. And then I can just enjoy my on time, my camera time. And it's, like I said, I feel that's more enjoyable to the viewers and definitely much more enjoyable for me.
So have you had ever one of those incredible moments, the walk-off homer for a playoff series or whatever, on stream? What would you say would be the highlight of your playing experience on camera? I mean, Dave and I joke about my walk-off safety I had.
Well, let's see. It wasn't a particular moment, but I did a full golf tournament with History Maker Golf using the 1980 Pro set. And it was just one of those like perfect afternoons. My wife took the kids to go visit her family, and so I had the house all to myself. It was a nice day, and I fired it up, and I told people ahead of time, I'm like, this is going to be a long video. This is going to be at least 3 hours. So sit back, relax. And I had no expectations. I was like, if there's 2 people in here by the end, I guess
great, that's fine.
But it was at least 10 people were there at all times, and I think at one point it was up to like 25.
Wow!
And people were really enjoying it. And I was having fun with, George Burns was one of the golfers in that, and I would do a other George Burns impersonation, and and then people would be like, no, not that George Burns. And so and it was so much fun. And like I said, I was like, oh boy, this is either going to be something that I'm going to really enjoy, or it's going to flop because I'm going to look and see that nobody's watching. But yeah, so that was a ton of fun, and really exceeded my expectations. But if I had to pick a single moment on camera, it was actually on the Play.com YouTube channel. Keith did a pre-play of the 2000 the Super Bowl against the Rams, the Patriots and the Rams
2 years ago.
And we did a pre-play of that, and so I got to coach the Patriots, and they ended up scoring the go-ahead touchdown in the fourth quarter, and it was on a special play, a special result where the pass went to pass to like one of the wide receivers, and he muffed it, and it bounced off his helmet, but like a Franco Harris reception,
nice.
The running back swooped in and caught it and ran in for the score, and that was the winning score. So, yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that was
Do you find it amazing here? Again, I'm fairly new to cards and dice. I've only been playing for a few years. You got the cards on the table, and you either have dice or fast action cards or charts or whatever this game you're playing, and the things that can happen in these games, you just shake your head like, I can't believe that these things are happening in a game on the table. This is, I mean, and I'm not talking like something that's way out of left field. I'm talking like feels like I was just at the game. Sometimes I get done a stream or play, and I'm like, man, I'm exhausted. That was awesome. I can't, no matter hockey, football, baseball, whatever it is, like that was, and then people comment like, wow, felt like we were at the game with you. Do you find it remarkable that these games can give you that feeling?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I can still remember, and it's a game that I wish that I had streamed when I was doing a full season with the Baseball America set, the first Baseball America set. There was only one player that was both a home run king and a slugger, which triggers a special rule called a home run legend, where if there's a lightning bolt next to certain results, if they have both of those qualities, they hit a home run instead of whatever the result is. And there was only one player, but he was also a sad sack, so he like didn't hit a lot. He was like the ultimate Dave Kingman. And by the time I got to the end of the season, the next year's set had already been released. So I knew that player had moved to another team. And then in the world, this was considered an older player. So like this was probably going to be his last year, the next one. But I knew it was going to be his last year on his first team. So in my league, that was the Cape Cod Lobsters, based out of Orleans. And it was their last home game of the season. And in my mind, I had this whole thing pictured of the fans knew his contract was up. He's 37 years old. He's probably not going to re-sign.
Is this the Ted Williams at last at bat thing coming up?
Yeah, so it was so in my mind it was Doug Smol's bobblehead day, and this so a situation came up. They're down by 3 runs. It's in the bottom of the 7th, and he is the 4th batter due up, and it was like a movie. It was like, guy leads off with a single, guy walks, and then the third guy either got hit by a pitch or walked, and it was just right. You could hear it. You could hear the announcers going, do you believe what's happening? Seeing Doug Smoles in the batting circle, and sure enough, he comes up and he hits a home run. He hits a grand slam, a go-ahead grand slam, and it was like, how can you couldn't write that, but it just happened organically in the game, and my God, that was 9 years ago.
Wow.
So, and I could envision seeing it. I could imagine what it would have been like sitting in the stands. I could imagine what it was like for Skip sitting at home watching it on TV and saying like, "Oh, I've been a Lobster fan for 50 years, and he's their best player." And so it is. It's you get sucked into this.
It is
cool little world.
It is pretty amazing. I did a stream. I was playing Replay PC Baseball. And I'm doing the 79 season, and the Red Sox were trailing by a couple of runs, bottom of the 9th, 2 out, 2 on, Freddie Lynn at the plate. And at the time, I had a second camera, and I was rolling dice into the dice tower. So, and then in Replay PC Baseball, you just put in the dice rolls, okay? And no kidding, Freddie Lynn's up, and I drop the dice in, and it comes out 6-6-6. And that's a home run for Freddie Lynn. And it was just, I started laughing.
Did you have it like 2 times in a row with him?
There was two games back to back that he hit bottom of the 9th home runs in Fenway for me. But this one I was streaming, and like I say, the dice come out 6-6-6. I couldn't cheat. It wasn't like I clicked it on the computer and it rolled. This was my dice roll, and it was a home run. And I put in 6-6-6 on the thing, and boom, it was a home run. The Red Sox win, and it's like these moments, they happen all the time, and that's why we play these games.
My last question: you PC game at all? Like OOTP or anything like that, or that just doesn't grab you?
I used to. I didn't get the most recent version of OOTP. I do have the 21, and it's just, I guess it's another thing. It's just time.
Yeah.
It's I used to play it quite a bit.
Because of the fictional aspect, I thought you would. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And actually, God, I think it was like 5 years in a row. I would import my universe into the next version, which I thought was always a cool thing. And and then just as I've gotten older, I kind of want to not look at a computer screen.
Yep, absolutely.
when I'm gaming, so it's except when I'm streaming, of course. And then But I know there's definitely some really good ones out there. I used to play a wrestling simulation, Total Extreme Wrestling, for the longest time, and that was a fun one because you were playing it from the perspective of a wrestling promoter. So you ran everything. You set ticket prices, and you decided if someone was going to get buried in a match, or if they were going to go back and forth, and then you had to deal with the personalities of the wrestlers, and somebody wouldn't be happy if they were looked a certain way. So that was kind of cool. It was almost like a wrestling life simulation. Cool.
Okay, one more question that I thought of. There are people who are listening out here who've never played a Play.com game. And we're talking the board games. We say Play.com. It's not you just buy them by the computer. They're all card and dice and board. Sell someone who might be hesitant on it because you feature their games a lot. You have a great relationship. You've done a lot of streams on them. What about that makes it special for you? besides appealing to people younger than Skip?
Sure. Well, so I guess the biggest thing about the play games is they're very easy to get into, and there's not a big barrier to entry getting it on the table. Mm-hmm. And there's not a lot of math involved in it. It's pretty straightforward, and if you're looking for something different, if you've been playing sports board games for years and years and years, and you're deciding that you kind of need something a little different, I don't think you could go wrong with those games, and especially History Maker Baseball. I feel like that's a game that anybody could jump into and really enjoy. And at a glance, I mean, the nice thing I like about the History Maker Baseball cards especially is that you can get an idea how good or bad a player is, but you don't know exactly.
Right.
It's the same as a manager. A manager is not going to know that exactly what a player is going to do. He's going to have an idea. So if you're looking for something different, something small footprint, and you have room in your library, I would definitely check out History Maker Baseball would be the biggest one, but depending on which sport you're in, I think any of the ones that they put out is
okay. Before we go, what's coming up on your channel? What's the future of your channel look like? I know you've been doing mostly live things now. You're still doing some game reviews, but a lot of other game streams. So what can we expect to see on After Further Review on your YouTube channel?
Sure, heading into the future. So I guess really the answer is I'm not even sure. I kind of week to week just I know I'm gonna be continuing Monday Night Tights for a while, alternating that with my History Maker Baseball, and then kind of as games come in, new games come out, like On Deck Baseball sort of took me by surprise, and so I was able to buy that and bring that onto the table and showcase that, and what a fun game that was to bring out. And so, and then I'm also going to start trying to bring in some non-sports games. I just did a roll and write on a pinball game, which was a lot of fun. It was a game I picked up on vacation a couple weeks ago, and it was so much fun that I didn't even play any of the games that I brought with me on vacation. So I guess I'm going to have AFR going in some capacity, probably always, until I'm just not able to. But it's going to be flexible, I guess, is the one way to put it. And if something really grabs me and I want to put it on, I'll put it on. And if I need to shut it down for a week or two, there's no expectation that I'm, missing out or on something.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, again, thanks for joining us. This is Steve Tower. After Further Review with Steve Tower on YouTube. You've probably seen him many times here, and we got to chat with him today. So, Steve, thank you so much for coming on Digital Dice. Any final words before we go?
Oh, sure. Get out there, have fun, play games, and I'll see you after Further Review.
All right. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, Living by the Numbers, episode 91 of the Digital Dice podcast. Great interview with Steve Tower.
Fantastic interview. What a fascinating guy.
Yeah, one of the first guys to get out there and do what we're all kind of doing there. He's kind of the pioneer. He had the Davy Crockett hat going out into the wilderness.
That's right.
Setting it up for everybody here.
He's our best Parker.
And so it was good to talk to him and get a little insight on what got him into gaming and how he did the stuff on his channel and what he's doing now and the progression of it all. A really, really fun chat.
I was really fascinated with just that he came at it from a board gaming point of view and not a sports junkie point of view.
Yeah. It's funny how many developers we've had on the show that say they come in from like wargaming and things like that and get into sports. So he came in from a different point of view as well, not really from the sports aspect of
Yeah.
it. You know, so good to talk to Steve. And yeah, in fact, we're going to probably have him on one of our Saturday night chats or Sunday night chat. That will be fun there. We have a great time doing those, and you guys really want us to do more of those chats on the weekend, so we'll be having him on at some point to do that as well. And episode 91. Again, ways to get a hold of us, digitaltodice.com is our website. 978-751-DICE is the Dice line. digitaltodice@yahoo.com, and over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. Any last words, Ron?
I'm all set. Thank you.
All righty. Well, let's hope it stops raining and we can all get outside
at some
again.
point, or at least warms up to past 65 degrees.
This
It's
is right.
cold in them Dar Hills.
It is. Well, it's summertime here, so 48 degrees, that's normal. We'll talk to everybody later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.